A giant alien spaceship hovers over the city. Similar ships are rapidly appearing around the world. Earth is facing its first contact with extraterrestrial civilization. Humans refer to these ships as travelers. Although we haven't yet established contact with the mothership, over the past few hours, various governments have observed several small alien probes, scanning the important military bases of each country, and results in the suicides of 57 employees. Recently, a traveler crashed in Guangzhou, China. Humans discovered samples of alien biological tissue in its wreckage. They resemble humans in appearance. Their DNA composition is 98.7% identical to that of humans. However, they can't breathe in Earth's atmosphere, and require an air filtration system to survive outside the spaceship. No one knows the purpose of these extraterrestrial visitors' sudden arrival on Earth. Despite the government's efforts to calm the public, the situation remains very tense. To prevent the aliens from posing a threat to us, a group of scientists has been convened by the state, planning to create a biological weapon to stop these unknown visitors. Dr. Riley had been appointed to this urgent mission. She bid farewell to her family via video call, quickly packed her bags and set off. Soldiers blindfolded Riley and took her to a secret base. Riley descended nearly 100 floors underground, into a chamber far from the surface. All members of the scientific research team would be housed in similar chambers. These chambers were intricately designed, allowing a person to survive in isolation for 12 months. The team leader introduced the communication room to Riley. Although this is a closed system, it allows communication within the team. Except in emergencies authorized by the government, no one is allowed to contact the outside world. Upon entering this underground chamber, the entire research team will be completely isolated from the outside. Riley was curious about what was special about the chairs placed inside. The team leader explained that the alien spacecraft would scan for nuclear energy in military bases. On the ground, they are equipped with high-performance lasers. To scan our equipment, the ships can penetrate nuclear submarines up to 300 meters deep, reaching deep underground military bunkers. They can control human thoughts, and can destroy them at will. This is why there have been mysterious suicides among employees. This type of chair is our only device that can resist alien scanning. When the intelligence system detects high-performance lasers, it will emit an alarm sound. Upon hearing this sound, all team members must sit in the chairs they need. To secure the headrest directly above them, then lower the body panel. After 30 seconds, they will be seated and avoid detection. If any step is missed during the operation, there is a possibility of alien intrusion into the brain. After explaining the specific procedures, he led Riley to see the transition room. This was equivalent to a regular laboratory. Once Riley familiarized herself with the working and living areas, the team leader handed her a manual. It contained various precautions and instructions. The project leader, Major Lawrence, would also contact her soon. Before this, Riley could familiarize herself with the environment here. The team leader finished speaking and entered the elevator to leave, then activated the lock mode. Without permission from her superiors, Riley couldn't leave at all. It was no different from being imprisoned. Riley opened the document, starting to learn about the entire AXE project. Currently, there were 2 scientific teams involved in the development of the biological weapon. Riley's team of 3 was responsible for bioengineering. The other group was in charge of nanotechnology, including the leader. There were a total of 4 men and 2 women. The biological weapon they were designing needed to enter the respiratory system of the travelers to destroy the lung tissue of the target. The primary condition was that it couldn't harm humans. It was developed specifically targeting the characteristics of the travelers. A detailed team introduction meeting would take place tomorrow. That night, Riley was awakened by a strange sound. She got up to check and found a vacuum robot, then relaxed her guard and went back to sleep. The next morning, Major Lawrence sent a video conference invitation. He had served in the military, and was already familiar with the profiles of the doctors. First, Asian female Cooper hails from MIT, who worked in mechanical synthesis research. She was responsible for the nanocapsule part of this mission. Next is Dr. Mighty. He was also a nanotechnology engineer, and was in the same group as Cooper. Then long-haired Gosselin appeared. He was the leader of the biological weapons group. He majored in microbiology during college. Next to him was the bald Dr. Finley, who was the deputy director of the biological team, holding a degree in bacteriology from Harvard. He is responsible for assisting Gosselin in researching biological active ingredients. Finally, it was Riley's turn to introduce herself. She didn't have such impressive qualifications. She graduated from the State University of Mexico, and mainly conducts research on pathogenic microorganisms. Finley looked disdainful. He couldn't understand how a regular professor from a state university could end up in such a high-end team. Riley explained that over the past 2 years, she had participated in collaborative projects at Sandia Laboratories. Her work experience was on par with anyone else's. The team leader advised Finley to watch his words and actions. "There are no amateurs in our team." Then he instructed everyone to prepare. They would officially start work tomorrow. After the leader finished speaking, he cut off the communication. Unexpectedly, team leader Gosling quickly sent a call invitation. He wanted to apologize for Finley's earlier rude behavior. In fact, Riley's inclusion in the X project was largely thanks to Gosling's recommendation. He had previously reviewed Riley's published research, which had been quite inspiring for him. Gosling believed the team needed scientists like her. It was clear that the man had a liking for Riley. Before long, he began to change the subject, asking Riley if she had any important family members outside, such as a husband or children. Riley replied that she only had a father and a brother. Moreover, her father was sick. Her brother was upset about her leaving this time, feeling that his sister only cared about work and not about family. After saying this, Riley asked about Gosling's situation. She learned that he had divorced his wife and had 2 beautiful daughters. Riley and Gosling chatted briefly before hanging up the video call. After all, tomorrow was an important day. They both wanted to rest early to recharge. In the evening, Riley was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, the alarm went off. A 30-second countdown immediately began. Riley quickly got up and sat in the chair. She activated the energy shield as quickly as possible. At a critical moment, the shell panel got stuck. The next second, she felt a sharp pain in her brain. Countless bizarre images flashed before her eyes. After the alarm was silenced, Riley felt dizzy and nauseous, even had a nosebleed. The leader probably realized that an incident had occurred. He immediately called to inquire about her condition. Riley hurriedly composed herself, then accepted the leader's call request. Since it was uncertain whether Riley had been infiltrated by aliens, the leader had to follow security protocols. He asked Riley a few questions. If she showed any signs of being compromised, she would have to be immediately removed from the project.
Are you hearing voices that aren't there?
No.
Did your nose bleed?
No, sir.
Riley chose to conceal the truth. The leader stated that last week, Warren Air Force Base had been scanned by the Traveler's high-performance lasers. He had witnessed 3 dead engineers with his own eyes. Those 3 had all chosen to commit suicide under mind control. So far, over 100 people have died in such a bizarre manner. The leader wouldn't allow such a thing to happen to his team. He warned Riley not to lie. The next second, the leader's face twisted and became strange. Riley knew this was her brain playing tricks on her. She tried to maintain a calm expression, and repeatedly stated that the chair hadn't malfunctioned, then avoided the previous scan. Riley understood that this was a selfish act, but she really didn't want to withdraw from the project. After gearing up, Riley entered the laboratory. Since each team member lived in different chambers, their communication was conducted online. Finley and Gosling had already conducted some research on the Traveler genome, and developed several toxins that could destroy their biological tissues. Unfortunately, they also affected humans, and couldn't be put to actual use. What Riley had to do today was to test the new results. Finley reminded her, the samples marked in red are the Traveler tissue samples. Affected by the samples, Riley experienced strange hallucinations again. She tried to push aside her distractions to avoid arousing Finley's suspicion, and took out the R18 solution, then precisely dripped it onto the tissue sample. The sample immediately showed signs of localized dermatitis and embolism. Next, a human tissue sample needed to be tested with the R18 solution, to see if it would have the same effect. Riley's hand trembled. She accidentally dripped 2 drops of the solution. The human tissue sample immediately reacted strongly.
Result fatal. Warning. Warning.
Riley hurriedly ran out to clean up the mess. Finley was at a loss for words, and questioned Gosling. Did you see that? Her hand was shaking. How can we complete the experiment with this level of quality? At this moment, Riley was standing in the bathroom rinsing off. Although the contaminants didn't penetrate her protective suit, she needed time to calm down. Riley had persevered under these conditions for a month, and hadn't made any mistakes since then. This evening, everyone gathered together to drink and chat. They were eager to know what was happening in the outside world. Dr. Mighty joked, maybe Earth has already been conquered. Civilization might have been destroyed. But Gosling believed that the travelers came to Earth not to invade and attack. With their advanced level of civilization, why would they travel thousands of light years across the galaxy to invade a planet that is completely unsuitable for them? Perhaps we are the only interstellar species. The travelers may have come just to communicate. Cooper retorted, if the travelers really wanted peace, why don't they contact us, instead of scanning various military bases?
Maybe they're just disarming us.
Riley agreed with Gosling's point of view. When she was scanned, she didn't feel any hostility. Perhaps the travelers are unaware of how dangerous their technology is to us. They may just be scanning hazardous areas for resources. The damage to humans might be incidental. After their casual conversation, everyone resumed their normal lives. Soon, Section 5, where Mighty was located, suddenly received a scan alert. He quickly ran to the chair and sat down. but this equipment was really useless. Mighty realized he couldn't move the hull panels. There had been a total of 2 alerts. This system never functioned properly. Poor Mighty was affected by the rays. Standing up like a zombie, he repeatedly slammed his head against the wall. After a few hits, he moved to sit at the computer desk, and continued to hit his head. Mighty ended up killing himself this way. Afterward, everyone held a meeting about the incident. The team leader proposed that everyone should regularly maintain their shares to prevent a tragedy from happening again. In addition, there was a very important piece of good news. Recently, the travelers sent us a set of coordinates and symbols. Experts interpreted these as the time and place for a meeting. The UN scientific team and the military were preparing to meet the travelers within 3 weeks. The president hoped the biological weapon would be ready before that. Although everyone hoped this meeting can proceed peacefully, we must be prepared for violence. The team leader finished speaking and ended the call. Riley and her team had only 3 weeks left. The nanotechnology group was making good progress. Although Mighty's accidental death occurred, Cooper alone could complete the work in 7 days. However, the biotechnology group was lagging behind. Their research on the R18 serum was still stuck in the first phase. Finley remarked from the side, "We've spent all this time training Riley." The arguments among these people left Riley with no time to pay attention, because the symptoms of auditory and visual hallucinations reappeared. She forced herself to finish the meeting. Cooper, as one of the 2 women in the team, noticed that something was off with Riley. She privately sent a chat request to Riley, and told Riley that she could ask for help anytime if she had difficulties. However, Cooper's expression was quite unsettling. She was close to the camera, her eyes vacant. This frightened Riley, prompting her to quickly find an excuse to log off. In the following time, the biotechnology group worked overtime. Riley spent almost all her time in the lab, but Finley remained as irritable as ever. He blamed all the failures on Riley, causing Gosselin to have to speak with her privately. He hoped Riley wouldn't be affected by Finley's attitude. Riley didn't care about this emotional garbage. She reviewed Finley's report and found that there was an enzyme, S32, present in the traveler's genome that wasn't found in humans. Finley had developed a serum for this very point, but Gosselin pointed out that this enzyme was too unstable. They had tried many times without success. In contrast, R18 was much more stable. The chances of success were also greater. However, Riley disagreed with Gosselin's viewpoint. S32 is the only unique enzyme we've discovered, and is the biggest breakthrough. Once we find the right method, we can attack the travelers while ensuring that humans aren't harmed. So Riley wanted to continue testing S32. Gosselin didn't give a direct answer, and just said that we didn't have much time left. S32 and R18 are both confusing me. He had another question he wanted to ask Riley. If we can survive and leave here, would you go on a date with me? Maybe dinner or a movie? Riley felt a bit awkward for a moment. How did the conversation about work veer off track? Just as he finished speaking, Gosselin received a message from Finley. He got up to handle it. Riley sat in her chair waiting. Unexpectedly, Gosselin quickly returned to the camera. He was holding a bottle of unknown solution. He kept repeating, "We did it."
The bioweapon. It won't hurt humans.
Gosselin finished speaking and gulped down the solution. It seemed he wanted to prove that it was harmless to humans, but soon, one side of his face began to swell and inflame. Blisters formed as if he had been burned. In no time, it burst like a balloon. When Riley came to her senses, she realized it had only been a hallucination. Seeing Riley regain her awareness, Gosselin continued, "Finley and I will continue testing the R18 variant. In the meantime, you can study S32. When Finley learned of this, he pressed Riley for the reason behind restarting S32. Riley replied truthfully, "You underestimate its catalytic properties. I recalculated the data from the past few days, and believe it's worth the risk." However, the machine's assessment results weren't optimistic. This enzyme is simply too unstable. Gosselin reminded Riley, "We cannot waste samples and time." But Finley spoke up for Riley, believing that her model deserved a chance. After receiving permission, Riley immediately began testing on the tissue samples. She dripped the compound targeting S32 onto the traveler samples. Localized dermatitis and widespread embolism appeared immediately, indicating that it had a lethal effect on the travelers. This step wasn't difficult. The hardest part was ensuring it was harmless to humans. Riley dripped the same solution onto the human tissue. 30 seconds passed, and the state remained stable. The hearts of the 3 of them were in their throats. But at 45 seconds, a fatal reaction still occurred. In any case, holding for 30 seconds was already a significant breakthrough. Finley and Riley believed S32 had great potential. If they persisted, they could surely make a breakthrough. But Gosselin still opposed this. The argument among the 3 caught the leader's attention. Finley strongly supported Riley, believing that S32 was more promising than R18. Just as Finley was making his case, Riley suddenly had a nosebleed. Taking advantage of the other's distraction, she quickly left the monitoring area. Unexpectedly, a figure of her father appeared on one of the screens.
You don't belong here.
should have been here with me and Ben. We needed you.
The voices of her father and the project leader echoed repeatedly in Riley's mind. One voice told her, "Don't let others control you. None of those team members respect you." Another said, "Your brain has been invaded. They will destroy you." The hallucinations in Riley's mind intensified. Finally, the two voices merged into one, telling Riley together, "You are weak. You won't last long before you commit suicide." Just as Riley was about to break down, a voice from reality brought her back to her senses. The person on the screen looked confused, not understanding why Riley abruptly left mid-sentence. She quickly made up an excuse to gloss over it, but that night, she couldn't fall asleep at all. Unexpectedly, the scan alert went off again. Riley immediately sprang out of bed. She rushed into the communication room to put on her gear. Finley received the alert on his end as well. If everything went as expected, this broken chair would surely malfunction. Sure enough, Finley soon heard the alert sound, indicating that his chair had detected a malfunction. Finley began to foam at the mouth. While Riley only exhibited mild rejection symptoms, her equipment was surprisingly useful for once. At this moment, Finley suddenly got up from his chair. He walked straight towards the laboratory. Everyone nervously stared at the computer screen, wanting to see what Finley was up to, but the laboratory was completely dark, making it hard to see his actions. They could only vaguely see Finley's abdomen cracked, with bright red intestines spilling out. Soon, he collapsed on the floor, lifeless. Afterward, the leader spoke with Riley privately. After all, there had been 3 radiation alerts, and only Riley had survived. The leader wanted to know her secret to survival. Riley explained that she wasn't sure. "Maybe it was just luck that my chair didn't malfunction." The chamber hadn't received any external communication for 12 days. Everyone had no choice but to focus on their work. One day, Riley was listening to music while organizing data. Suddenly, the electronic screen malfunctioned. Explosions appeared in the tranquil landscape images. Riley found it strange. Then, a lamppost suddenly exploded. She saw her bloodied brother questioning her. "You abandoned me like our mother did back then." Just as he finished speaking, flames engulfed him. Riley knew this was just an illusion. She was trying hard to calm her emotions, but the team leader logged in with news from the outside. 12 hours ago, the travelers attacked cities and facilities nationwide. Washington, D.C. and major military bases were completely destroyed. The president was left with only nuclear weapons as a response, but she refused to implement them in the U.S. The leader was busy with evacuations recently. Once they reached the new command center, he would log in to contact everyone. In the meantime, they must quickly develop weapons. Riley pointed out that all efforts should be focused on S-32. Gosling initially wanted to argue a bit more. The leader assigned Riley to take over the project. Gosling would assist her on the side. In the most recent S-32 experiment, the human sample was stable for a minute before failing. If only the travelers had the S-32 gene. Why did the experimental serum harm human tissue? Riley speculated, perhaps because both types of tissue are carbon-based. They need to prevent S-32 from binding with carbon. But the research wasn't yet complete. Cooper also experienced hallucinations and committed suicide. The leader asked Riley to send him all the information about S-32 first. The president could no longer wait. Riley quickly reminded him, "Our research is still incomplete. Moreover, this virus is airborne. Once released, it cannot be stopped. If something goes wrong, everyone will die." Riley couldn't let the leader's impulsiveness endanger the Earth, so she encrypted and locked all the data. She promised to deliver the real biological weapon within 24 hours. Unexpectedly, that night, an intruder appeared in the leader's chamber. He completely lost contact with the two. Riley's hallucinations became more severe. She nearly ended up killing herself like Mighty. Time was running out, so she rushed back to the lab and planned to finish the research before completely losing her mind. So far, all sequences of the research were based on the ratio of oxygen to nitrogen in the human body, but the travelers weren't human. Riley decided to reverse the ratio of oxygen and nitrogen. After realizing this key point, the test was indeed successful. They developed a weapon that was harmless to humans. To ensure absolute safety, Gosling took the risk of injecting himself with the serum, and wanted to see if it was truly harmless to humans. Riley wanted to stop him, but it was too late. She could only closely monitor Gosling's reactions. In his agitated state, he revealed a terrifying truth. During that drinking and chatting session, Gosling had clearly shown a tendency towards peace, believing that the travelers were harmless to humans. He had no intention of developing weapons at all. He had long been dissatisfied with Mighty and Finley's desire to eliminate the travelers, so he secretly sent signals to the travelers, intentionally luring them to scan the bunker. Gosling also hacked the emergency communication signals, deliberately causing chair malfunctions. Only this way could he kill Finley and Mighty, to prevent the manufacturing of the weapon. No wonder Gosling ignored research on S-32, insisting on stubbornly pursuing R-18 instead. It turned out he was intentionally slowing down the research progress. However, there was one thing Gosling couldn't figure out. Riley also underwent the scan, so why hadn't she lost control and committed suicide?
I know you're connected to them, Michelle. Don't fight them. Let them take control. The world will be a better place.
After Gosling finished speaking, his skin began to rot. Before long, he died in his chair. It seemed that the research on S-32 had failed. The research team had been in the underground chamber for 104 days. Everyone except Riley had perished. She was now isolated and unable to contact the outside world, so she decided to take the risk of testing it on herself. Riley anxiously awaited her fate. Unexpectedly, the serum worked successfully after adjustments. Just then, the team leader sent a message. Riley quickly reported the success of the experiment. The team leader cut off the transmission, saying they would arrive soon. Riley noticed his nosebleed. It seemed the team leader had already been compromised. Riley hurriedly made the weapon, and converted most of the serum into a gaseous weapon. She prepared for her final resistance, while waiting for the travelers to arrive. Soon, the invasion alarm sounded. Riley hid under the table, watching secretly. Before long, she was detected by an alien probe. After scanning, it left the rest area. Before Riley could breathe a sigh of relief, she saw a seemingly unscathed Gosling walk in. He demanded she hand over the research data. Seeing him in a protective suit, she guessed that this person was a fake. Only aliens would fear exposure to the atmosphere. Riley pretended to hand over the data, and took the opportunity to inject the serum into him. The fake Gosling collapsed and died. Riley hurriedly activated the locked elevator to leave the base, walking towards a world on the brink of extinction. A few infected individuals in protective suits quietly followed her from behind. The film ends here. It seems they intended to make a sequel. Surprisingly, an old actor from Jigsaw made a cameo. You could tell that the production costs were very low. Low costs mean there aren't many big scenes. The special effects were surely shoddy. If a sci-fi film lacks strong special effects, it must have a solid and outstanding script. Clearly, this film failed to achieve that. As a result, it felt very much like a low-budget online film. The ending was also very rushed. There was a sense that the story had just begun and then ended. Hopefully, the sequel will tie everything together.